Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast stream. My name is Jed and we are in the Socrates and Jesus, a Dialogue in Heaven text, which is a banger. It is a fantastic, exceptionally fantastic and wonderful and awesome and profound and meaningful and helpful book. My goodness. And you can find a link to the PDF below, wherever you're watching this. Now, wait, something crashed. Ignore that. Okay, let's keep going. So, last time we did a fantastic review, covered a lot of things, specifically some new terms to make yourself sound fancy. But where are we in the book so far? Well, we have understood by learning to read in a new kind of a way. We've understood the cause of human problems. It's a kind of human functioning where we make sense of the world through belief. The solution to human problems is in a different kind of cognitive functioning called understanding. So our evolutionary journey is from belief-based cognition into understanding-based cognition. For all of us. So, the reason we're here, or the meaning of life. Now, we've been learning about the nature of what it means to be a believer. Belief is, in principle and definition, in opposition to three main things: logos or understanding, reason, mind, and the self. Whereas understanding itself is the method through which we can reach those three things, which are, fascinatingly enough, the next three stages of cognitive development or personal growth or evolution or spiritual development. Did I say that one twice? Yeah, it's worth saying twice. So you could therefore understand belief-based cognition as a fourth level. The one above that is understanding. Above that is mind, and above that is self. 1, 2, 3. So, what is interesting about understanding is not only is it a cognitive functioning above belief, but it's the method through which you reach those ones higher than it. You use understanding of the mind to reach that level of mind, or the experience of the mind, capital M. So you use your mind to know the mind, which is eternal. It's called the spiritual experience because you're separated from your body. The exercise of philosophy, the purpose of all yogas fundamentally, to separate your consciousness from your physical body and reconnect with the mind, or pure beauty, if you are seeking that through a loving relationship. That application of the understanding to level 2, mind, is metaphysics. That's what the word metaphysics means. It's not what they tell us it means at school, because we don't learn real philosophy, we learn Aristotle's false beliefs. So Socrates taught Plato. Unfortunately, Socrates didn't write a lot down. Anything down. We killed him, that's our bad. Plato dropped some things, and then after Plato came Aristotle. That's our current system. Aristotle denies metaphysics. The understanding can also be applied to your experience if you experience knowledge, separate your mind from your physical body, connect with the mind, know reality eternally. You can understand that to go beyond it, to address the cause of it. That's the self. So while understanding is the cognitive functioning that we can do in time, following the logos, using a mastery of reason in our physical world, and therefore is the stage above belief, it's also, we don't drop it. We don't leave it behind. We leave belief behind because beliefs are stupid and bad and false and cause problems. But we don't leave understanding behind. So we can say that the stage 3, 2, and 1 are cumulative. Everything higher will contain or embrace that which is below. When you reach self, why would you forget the experience of knowing yourself as mind? Why would you drop the following of reason or understanding? So that movement from understanding to mind and to self, that's called anagogic movement. And that's what we looked at last time. Well, that's where we're going now, because Socrates said, hey, by the way, the anagogic triad, let me just bring up my notes. Beauty, harmony, and dialectic are three things that work together for us to make an anagogic movement. They're called the anagogic triad. And anagogic means upward moving. So while belief is stagnant, you can't develop. You have to stay as stupid as you were when you were a kid and you got indoctrinated into that belief. Understanding allows for further development. So belief is fundamentally anti-life and anti-human, in that it stagnates human development and functions in opposition to the meaning of life. By definition, that's not an opinion. That is itself understanding. So while beliefs are personal opinions and can change person to person, understanding is true for everyone. That's important. And benefits. This understanding of the difference between belief and understanding our development benefits everyone. Not only that, not only is there an anagogic movement upwards when you go from belief number 4 to understanding 3, so you can use understanding to reach 2, mind, and then 1, the self. But understanding can also turn back and help people go through that process of development from belief into understanding. That's called formally philosophical midwifery. It's the application of the dialectic, which is the use of understanding, the structure of understanding, to understand belief and help people purify themselves from their own false beliefs that prevent their own development and cause human suffering. Because while culturally there are extreme inequality and mass murderings and genocides happening currently and all through history as a result of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, well, that's the cause of the majority of the problems in our race culturally. societally, individually, we all have a similar problem that's called a pathologos. Our individual false belief about ourselves and reality. So we're all in this together. So today we're going to examine what is that anagogic or upward movement. Oh, by the way, and you can't do either of the two. Purify our false beliefs to free us from our ignorance and injustice towards ourselves or others, or the anagogic movement upwards to know the nature of reality or mind, and then beyond that to the self. You can't do either of those two things without also using understanding to unlock the meaning of your dreams. Dream analysis is a necessary part, says Socrates in the text. Now, one of our puzzles on this channel is, well, we killed Socrates before he could outline dream analysis. So while we have the dialectic applied to reason in Plato's philosophy, to a certain level to reach mind, and we have the dialectic applied to problems in the art of philosophical midwifery in that book, it's our job to put together the book on how specifically do you apply the dialectic to understand the providential or the divine intelligent guidance of your dreams, which is a puzzle but also an exercise, because we have to be learning the dialectic ourselves such that we can use that to create the structure of dream analysis ourselves. So it's a little game that we can play together, and super important. All right, so that's the cause of human problems in the world and individually, both of which are belief. That's how you solve human problems, understanding, along with dream analysis and midwifery. You can understand them the way we are doing it now, understanding the principles, but to specifically remove your individual pathologos, you also need midwifery and dream analysis, but that's all understanding. But one thing we're also seeing as a difference between our zombie or caveman or savage way of being from our early evolution before we had reason, belief, difference between that and our sage-like way of being, Homo sapiens, man the thinker, well, that's thinking, understanding. We're not there yet. We haven't yet entered the human race, which is curious, isn't it? You can't be a human being if you are stuck in belief, because belief is anti-intelligence in principle, by definition. And one difference between savages and sages, or beliefs and understanding, is how we approach analogy. Believers are stuck because of analogy. There is a fundamental, unsuspected root analogy at the cause of our problems. Culturally, an analogy that links modern believers, Christians, Jews, and Muslims, to Abraham. They all have Abraham as their root. There's a false analogy they don't even know they're carrying. Because they're ignorant of it, they are a slave to it. They don't have it. They're not knowingly carrying it. It has them. That's why we call them zombies. You don't have the zombie virus has you. It also functions like a zombie-like virus because it's parasitic. It steals your life energy. It blocks your development. It limits. It's limiting by nature. That's the nature of belief. Limits. You have to accept limits of language. You can only say brains, or I love Jesus, I love Jesus. Thoughts and prayers. You can't actually solve any problems. The modern right wing. So they're not a political party because they are bound by false belief. A political party requires understanding and care, a desire to care for the people under their governance. No politicians currently meet the definition of a political party. Because underneath belief is a fifth category, a mass of differences. You're not in the team, you're not a MAGA or a Zionistic Jew willing to do genocide for dear leader. But also, you don't have understanding either. You're not demanding understanding, 3, of the paradigm of truth, 2, to help all selves reach their development to 1, know themselves. That's like saying you can be a doctor without caring for your patients, without knowing the model of the healthy body, without 3, understanding how to use that model in medicine. But yeah, you're a doctor because, I don't know, you want to be. That's so fucking stupid. And that's the current state of our clergies and kings, our politicians and people claiming to speak for the divine. Which of course is why we have the problems we're in. So there's a root false analogy that believers can't understand because understanding uses analogies. We think through analogies. That's fascinating, isn't it? How do you learn about something you don't know yet? You make an analogy. Relate it to something you are familiar with. Likeness, the principle of likeness. So those who haven't experienced that second realm, mind, how do you reach it then? Mind itself is reflected in understanding. As we can use the elements of understanding and the dialectic through time, we can use it as an analogy to make sense of what must that model be that understanding is a copy of. Model to copy, likeness. As heaven is to earth, so too model is to copy. That's analogies. That's how we think. That's why IQ tests are all analogies and stuff. Messing with analogies and metaphors and things. The greater we can master the use of analogies, the more intelligent we become. And funny, we make jokes with analogies. But also Socrates pointed out in the book, hey, that's what I use to reach people. Most people don't want to learn this. Firstly, because they think they already know what the self is and what reality is, because that's the nature of belief. Secondly, because they are taught to fear self, mind, and understanding. And third, well, the many want to be entertained rather than educated. But here's what I do. I use analogy, says Socrates. You know that analogy? As model is to copy, so too the realm of being or mind too is to our physical realm. But you know what else follows a model to copy? Being a blacksmith. You make something with your blacksmithery based on a model. Shoemaking. You have to have a model of how the shoe is to make a copy of it. So this is how I reach out to everyday people, because philosophy, this is for everyone. We're not going to survive as a species until everyone, or at least enough people, wake up to this game of transitioning from belief into understanding. It's an analogy. You can use it to help people. Use it to think. That's understanding. And once you understand your topic, you can have fun with it. It's fun to create analogies to express what you see clearly. Believers are a slave to an analogy, as Abraham was instructed to kill his son, so too modern Jews, Muslims, and Christians are instructed to kill others in the name of their God. That's why we have all the wars justified in the world. But every individual has, from their early childhood, a false belief about themselves that they identify with, that becomes their mask, that limits their own development and way of being. That's also an analogy. Hey, in the past, when I was reaching out to understanding, I was shut down. When I expressed what I loved when I was young, I was shut down. I was told off. I was crushed in some way. So if there's analogy, my present is a copy of the model of that past. Every time in my current present, I want to connect with someone I love, or pursue something I love, or reach a level of excellence, that false analogy will limit me. I will expect the same reaction. I will even project onto the world that past. Why? Because the past is the model. The present is the copy. That's the root analogy behind the pathologos that every human being gets, the cause of our individual problems. Got my guitar pedals under my desk. Moving them out of the way. Therefore, while we can use the analogy of model as to copy anagogically or upwardly to move from understanding to enlightenment or knowledge or wisdom, so too can we use understanding looking down to help others by helping them find their root analogy that's false. Our soul has the potential to carry an analogy moving us up, but because of our upbringing, our parents pretending to be knowers, playing priest king of the house, we instead have in that part of the soul a different analogy that gets in the way. Therefore, while Socrates, or us, in philosophy, uses analogy to move upward, in midwifery, you can surface the false analogy that believers carry that they don't know they carry. Try talking to a Muslim, Jew, or Christian. They don't know they're carrying an analogy from Abraham. They got no idea. Because understanding analogy is understanding.
Wow.
And they're not understanders, they're believers. They don't know their problem. That's why it's absurd to see all these believers, religious people, right-wingers, MAGAs in government. Oh, I know how to solve problems, thoughts and prayers. No, you don't. It's a different cognitive function, by definition. Equally so, when people get into the game of midwifery, they seek excellence, they seek understanding, they want to be better people, they want to reach their goals. They don't want to be another cog in the machine of the family curse, repeating the cycle of violence and ignorance in the world. They don't want to be a unwitting zombie for badness. Then they wake up to, okay, well then I've got to do midwifery and dream analysis. But the beginning of midwifery starts with, this is what I think is my problem, and it's always wrong. You don't know your problem. You think you do, that's the problem. You have to free yourself from belief that blocks your understanding to actually understand your problem, understand the root analogy that you're carrying. Same thing with dream analysis. You start doing dream analysis. As soon as you wake up, hit the record button, record the dream into audio, then transcribe it. There are lots of apps and websites you can use that are really good at transcribing audio. But before you go through the application of the dialectic to unpack the real meaning, take a look and have a guess. What do you think the dream's about? You're going to be wrong. Therefore, in principle, anyone seeking vengeance or punishment, any sort of violence to solve problems is fucking evil. Not evil, that doesn't exist. Disgusting and inhuman, harmful. You are always going to be wrong. That's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be a believer. You are going to be wrong. The idea that you make people suffer is so fucking stupid and anti-human and cruel and sadistic. It should never ever be tolerated. Punishing people for making mistakes. Then you have a bunch of disgusting people sitting on the edge of the seats, not willing to take a risk in their life, but waiting for somebody else to take a risk and make a mistake. Oh, now you're a bad person. Now we can all pile on you. Time of recording, there was an assassination of a right-wing fascist, racist propagandist for the fascist party, Charlie Kirk. He was assassinated. And straight away, all of the right-wing politicians and pundits were like, oh, look, something bad happened. Now we can use that as an excuse to punish people. False flags, same thing. I'm even going to create the situation where someone made a mistake. The genocide against the Palestinians. Oh, look, they tried to fight back against our decades of oppression and starvation and murder of the Palestinians, says the Jewish state. Look at them fighting back. Well, they didn't fight back perfectly, made a mistake, now we can punish you. That's why all punishment is fucking stupid, irrational, and inhumane. You can't do midwifery if you believe in punishment. Which means you can't learn anything. Ever. You're stuck in ignorance. That's how fucking insane punishment is. Punishment, the idea that you can make someone better by inflicting suffering, is just an excuse to justify violence and oppression. It's a scam. It's a con. It's always a con. It's a grift. So, if you now, once you realize that, you can do the game of actually realizing you're supposed to be wrong because you don't yet have understanding. If your beliefs could solve the problems of your beliefs, then you wouldn't have a problem. And also there wouldn't be any human evolution or growth. We would be stagnant, stuck in beliefs. If beliefs didn't cause problems, we would have no reason to challenge our beliefs. So yes, beliefs cause tremendous suffering and injustice. But if they didn't, we'd be in an even worse case. Oh yeah, let's tolerate child abuse through religion. Teaching children to fear, understanding, mind, and self. To accept limits of Scientology or Mormonism, or to believe that women are evil because Eve tricked Adam into eating an apple. All this fucking terrible horse shit. Child abuse. It's what it is. We'd tolerate that if we didn't have to face the implications of belief-based thinking in our world. Genocide, murder, the Crusades, torture, rampant child abuse and oppression. All of it. Because that's what it means to be a believer. Oh, and all this we get from the book. So that's what we are looking at today. The fact that believers are a slave to a root analogy that's false and keeps them trapped in their and stagnant in their injustice and harm, thinking that for the Abrahamics, they murder as Abraham did. For all our people, our present is a copy of our origin scene, past. So believers are a slave to a root analogy, while people who are playing understanding, functioning through understanding, playing that game, they use analogy to free us from false analogies and help people, but also use analogies to learn and develop. That second thing that we just said, the use of analogies to learn and develop, that's called anagogic movement. The understanding of that is metaphysics. The application of analogy to metaphysics, create an analogy for all of the parts of metaphysics that help us move up. Let's use an analogy or make a metaphor and personify them with gods. That's real theology. Isn't that interesting? It's all analogies. Analogy applied to truth is how we understand and move up. And that's called metaphysics. Analogy applied to metaphysics, that's the stories of the gods. They're not real people. It's an analogy. That's theology. That's what we're doing today. Looking at the theology and the metaphysics of that anagogic or upward moving movement through analogy. Let's jump in. Okay. Oh, by the way, after we have that reflection, we might get haters that come into the chat or into our mind saying, hey, this is foolishness. There is no way to understand dreams, and excellence is nothing special. All you have to do is see what is accepted as excellence and compete against it. Be a haterade. Drink the haterade. Look for people doing excellence and attack them. Bring them down. Just ignore all of this stuff we've been talking about, because reality is whatever you want it to be. That's the fifth. Everything is nonsense. Black pill, they call it nowadays. Kind of like nihilism. Anything is anything, who cares? Reality is what you make of it. There is no reality out there to be seen with a capital R. These guys want to say that they have it's double vision. There's another realm? Crazy. They see what we see, and in the same seeing, they claim to see a different reality than what we see. As well, take a look. There is only one reality. It's what you piece together after you experience whatever you experience. Materialism. What could be more laughable than to read gospels that have been thrown out? Right? The Gnostic gospels that were burnt by the church following Paul, who emphasized belief and rejected everything Jesus said about understanding, 3, and knowing the kingdom of knowing heaven, 2, and the kingdom of God, which we suspect might be number 1. Self, mind, understanding. Paul denies all that, so modern Christians are Pauline Jews, which is interesting. Anyone who says belief and prayers and thoughts and prayers and all that kind of crap, they're not listening to Jesus. And we can see that because we've uncovered these Gnostic Gospels that present a very different story of Jesus than we get from Paul. But the anti-chorus comes in and says, hang on a second, all this loud boasting, where does it come from? Are you trying to convince us or yourself, buddy? You're either right or wrong, that's all. Take the risk. Use your mind instead of raving against it. Otherwise you'll fill your life with empty pleasures. Seek money and control and manipulating people. Physical pleasures, and you'll ignore the challenge to see if there really is meaning to be realized. Go ahead and take the challenge, says the anti-chorus. What do you have to lose? Just one thing. Your own cowardice. Take the risk. Allow yourself to make mistakes as a tool for learning. You'll lose your cowardice. Okay, then Jesus wants to know, how does Socrates use the gods? If it's not an object of belief, hiding a root analogy that demands murder from Abraham. And then Socrates says, well, I use the gods differently. Let's pick it up from here. I think this is where we're up to. Oh, and yeah, differently in that, hey, the understanding of mind, or I think this one's better. If there's a physical world of becoming that follows principles and rules and laws, they all exist eternally. That's why math is for everyone. It's always going to equal 2. It doesn't matter if some beautiful things get broken and become ugly, beauty will still be beauty. So the cause of principles that we use in understanding and reason exist in being eternally, that you can experience if you can separate your soul from your body, or people have experienced called the brilliant light of being in mushroom trips or near-death experiences, lots of different ways. The aspects of that pure being is the ideas with a capital I, or eidos in Greek. The understanding of that is metaphysics. The analogy or personifying them as gods, that's theology. So that's how Socrates uses the gods. But he said, by the way, even that has to have a cause, because these have qualities: life, vitality, eternity, intelligence, some ability to use itself as a model to create the physical world. These are all qualities. Where do they come from? And what keeps them together as a oneness, such that you can experience all of those things all at once in the spiritual experience? Socrates says that's beyond the gods. So there's a line here. While metaphysics and theology applies to this, it's not up here. That third level of being, or ontology. Ontology is a fancy word for what dimensions exist. And epistemology is a fancy word for how we relate to them cognitively. You can have beliefs, images, and opinions of the physical world. Understanding derives from here, the being. Now, as Einstein says, you can't solve problems with the same kind of cognition that caused them, So too, you cannot solve problems of our world with beliefs. That's why it's so insanely fucking stupid that we have believers in politics. Can't solve problems. You can use understanding to solve problems. You can use understanding to do this, that's theology and metaphysics, and you can use understanding to go beyond, to reach that which is beyond metaphysics and theology, the cause or the self. So those are the cognitive functions, epistemology. The levels of reality they apply to, ontology. So there's two fancy words that summarize the two things philosophy is essentially about. Okay. Pretty neat book. This book's a banger. So let's jump into our reading. Bring in our players. Here they are. Excuse me. Cheers. I have frosty berry. I have a frosty berry drink. Socrates. Okay, the question is, how does Socrates use the gods differently than believers who think they're actually real or lie about thinking they're real to manipulate people? Okay. Firstly, Jesus in the Hellenic world. Okay, and speaking of analogy, we do have an analogy for all that we've been doing. If human development is from belief to understanding, hey, welcome, Isidori. Cheers. I hope you're enjoying a nice glass of wine as you've emoted. It's my birthday tomorrow, so the wine can be in my honor. I have decided. So, you can use an analogy to represent belief to understanding. We do that. Zombies to humans. Savages to sages. You can personify it through metaphor or analogy. With people, what figure most represents belief? Jesus. What figure most represents understanding? Socrates. That's the book. The best possible analogy to represent human development. And in chat we have a angel. Ah, angels. There we go. So zombies to angels. Why not? Also, you can create an analogy or metaphor to represent this development for all human beings, all intelligent species at this level. Happy birthday. Thank you. Big headness with the hyphen. Thanks very much. Cultures. There are cultures that can represent it. What culture represents understanding? The Hellenic culture. That's where Socrates lived. Socrates, Parmenides, Diotima, Parmenides' teacher Xenophanes. These are all people who were masters of understanding. You're in Canada. Where am I? I'm in Australia, mate. I'm in Australia, mate. So I'm gonna have a Foster's beer to celebrate my birthday, and I'm gonna chuck a shrimp on the barbie. Island gang. Oh, cool. To be sure. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, you're talking to the chat. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, Hellenic versus Abrahamic. Okay, let's keep reading. So in the Hellenic world, metaphor for understanding, there is only one theme playing itself out, and that is the will of Zeus expressing itself as providence. The direct knowing of providence may be beyond human reach. Ah, 2 Canadians. But the understanding of providence is an essential task. Now, this is a huge clue for us. We have just been talking about how important understanding is as the third stage of cognition above knowing, above belief. We have a mass of nonsense, modern Democrats, believers in 4, understanding is 3, knowledge of being is 2, and the self is 1. Here he's saying, hey, look, providence is beyond knowing. So providence isn't from here, because that's the object of knowing. Therefore, if we want to find where providence lives, he's giving us a clue. He's also giving us another clue about understanding. He's saying, hey, while providence up here is beyond the reach of knowledge, it can be reached through understanding. Isn't that interesting? So even though understanding is 3, it may have a greater reach than 2. And I think I mentioned last time, Pierre Grimes, the author of this book, would say, hey, brilliant light of being experiences or knowledge experiences are great. But I'd trade each one of them in for an insight into understanding, particularly understanding my pathologos beliefs that cause my problems. So, a bit of a clue there for us. The direct knowing of providence may be beyond human reach, but the understanding of it is an essential task. So we got to understand it, essentially. Primarily, the principal ideas inherent in the experience of reality are personified as gods. The total expression of all of the primary ideas that can account for principles and conditions for the existence of the cosmos constitute the catalog of the characteristics of the gods. So a complete theology needs to account for every principle that we use and all of the conditions for our physical world too. The threefold condition for a god to be a god is that he expresses a mode of existence, a power, and an activity. As we read, we look for patterns. And here we have a triad. We have the triad of what it means to be a god. So we take these into our inventory as we read. To be a god, you need to exist. Of course, exist in being, we've already seen that. You need a power to do what you do, and an activity. If you're not really doing anything, then what are you pointing to say that that's a principle of reality called a god? Activity. So we can carry that triad. Exploring the Hellenic gods in this way brings clarity and levels of meaning within their mythology. The movement from mythology to metaphysics shifts attention from metaphor to discovering the rational structures and matching them with some kind of experience. Solving the puzzle, moving from story to the real thing, gives us two things: an understanding of the rational structures, but also we can link it to an experience. Because if the gods represent this realm of being, this is what we experience. This is the experience, the spiritual experience. This one. So, different depths of that experience of knowledge or pure being can be linked to something that we can understand rationally that accounts for everything in our cosmos and the principles that apply to our cosmos. So it's not just a dry academic thing. You can experience it. You can check out the party. The natural result of this kind of theology is that it's a parallel metaphysical expression of each of the gods. It becomes a way of understanding the gods within the elements of theology. Indeed, the one, wait. My mic stand's shaky. Why is it shaky? Who cares? The one cannot be personified, nor can there be an image of it. This is interesting. If our goal, the goal of any meaningful structure, any meaningful system, is to know the self, without that your system is meaningless. Know the self. This self that we're after, you, can't be personified, can't be metaphysics or theology. You can't even have an image of it, which fits very nicely into our understanding of how to solve our individual problems through midwifery. As you go through midwifery, what you're doing is, yes, you're uncovering a root analogy from your past that you're applying to your present, but that functions as a self-image. You think you are something. It's the star of your thoughts. It's the star of your dreams. Not really you. And as we go through midwifery, by looking at our past and understanding it in a skillful way, we're slowly removing, piece by piece, any image of the self. Not positive thinking, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I am the champion, I am the best Christian, I am the chosen one. No, it's realizing you don't need that because you transcend any experience and, as we saw here, any image. So that fits nicely. And by the way, just as we said, metaphysics has both understanding and an experience, so too does midwifery. As you apply understanding to the unsuspected false image you're carrying, you have to apply that in your everyday life by seeking excellence. This, of course, being it, really. Mastering this kind of a text. So you see you don't need your image. And you see that it was your image that was getting in the way, causing your blocks the whole time. Which is fascinating because it shows us we really need to be doing this. If our goal is the self and it's beyond images, we better be doing what we can to remove our images, beliefs, and opinions about the self. You can't have both. You can't carry an image of yourself and know the self. They are a mutually exclusive Venn diagram. The one cannot be personified, nor can there be an image of it. It is the vital condition for there being gods, and so it is not a god among gods. Even the earliest philosopher among the Hellenes called it not a god but mind. There are also those like Pythagoras and myself who don't say mind because we apply it to that second realm. We call it the one or the good. But here's a tip. Its true name is the one self. Ooh. The true name for ourself is the one self. Jesus. How did one of your philosophers express this way of viewing the gods? There are several I could mention, but for this task I think it best to call upon Celestius or Proclus. I am familiar with Proclus, I don't know this Celestius guy. The name Proclus is known here as a profound one. I'd choose... interesting. I'd choose whoever presented a way to understand the Olympian gods. Whoops, that's Jesus. The Olympian gods are a class of gods within a matrix of gods. Hold it for a moment, says Jesus. I would be amiss if I didn't stop you and ask about this matrix of gods. Can you first explain how you are going to manage this exploration? Yes. I think it best if I describe the soul's journey. That will present a picture of causes and conditions necessary for the ascent to the good itself. Now, he called it the good or the one, or really the one self. So when we see good or oneself or self, the capitals, we know it's pointing to the same thing. This fellow up here, our ultimate goal. And so, hey, what are we going to use to talk about the gods? Why not just use the soul's journey? Isn't that the most interesting thing for us as souls? Don't we want to know how to reach that? And what's needed? What are the causes for our enlightenment? And the conditions for those causes to play out? What a good thing to pick as what we're going to use. Good on you, Socrates. We will raise a Foster's in your honor. I don't drink. This is just an energy drink. The picture will go from the highest to the lowest or the reverse. Which would you prefer? Jesus says, let's go from the lower to the higher. Suits me, because that's where we are starting as human bods. I will sketch out the journey in philosophical terms, and then, by substituting the names of the gods, you will understand the 12 worldly gods. Another word for that is the mundane gods, and how we can hierarchically order them. Which is neat because we recognize finding the necessary terms within a set and how they're ordered is necessary for understanding. Now that's something I would like to see, Socrates. Surely the goal of life is to exhibit a mode of perfection through being what you truly are. So if we really are that thing that's beyond images, up here, for oneself, somehow in our journey from human problems caused by beliefs and images, by developing an understanding to free us from that, learning an understanding of the gods, we can go through a kind of development which opens us up to verify our understanding in an experience, and then go beyond to know the self. But he's saying, hey, the goal of life is not only to reach the self or recognize the true nature of yourself, but to exhibit a kind of perfection, which might also include the use of that understanding that you've developed along the way. Oh yeah, and maybe even using this that you've experienced along the way. If this is the model of justice, if this is the model of beauty, then wouldn't you want to use it? To be a just person, create just systems, create beautiful things? But maybe there's something inherent about that way of being if it's what we automatically are. Whoops. To exhibit a mode of perfection through being what you truly are. And Socrates says, yes, I agree, since the drive for perfection often begins after an encounter with works of beauty that could only have come into existence through a mastery of an art. Those who have had such an encounter are then drawn to seek profound truth. Such is the anagogic path. Now remember, anagogic is a fun word that you can use to impress your friends and sound super smart at the coffee shop, because it means upward moving, to move upwardly through the analogies, through reason and understanding. Anagogic, it's a kick-ass word. Yeah. Before we explore the nature of the gods, I would benefit by first learning what you see behind these terms that you use with such ease. What do you mean by the anagogic realm? Sure thing, Jesus. It is my pleasure to explore that realm, since it is so much akin to me. What does that mean? First, it is through the attraction and cultivation of harmony and rhythm that mankind first encounters the power of ousia. Ousia is a Greek word that means to turn it's the Greek word that is the capacity of mind to turn around and know itself. Okay? It's what is blocked from believers. There's no self-reflection and belief. You just do as you're damn told. But understanding is, of course, reflecting on the self. Understanding isn't understanding how many beings there are in China. It's understanding yourself as pure mind or pure being. Understanding yourself as this. By the way, if the realm of being is the cause of the physical world, it can't be itself physical. So while this coffee cup has its existence because it maintains a physical shape, what maintains the existence of these ideas and this realm? Ousia. Self-reflection. Pure mind knowing itself in a certain kind of a way, giving it its own kind of existence, which is why this is the object of knowledge. You can directly apprehend it with mind itself, because this turning around is ousia. That's the sixth sense of the soul that you awaken in this game, but it's also the nature of this realm. That's why it's the knowable object. And if you've ever seen somebody use that quote of Socrates saying, I am wisest in all Athens because I know nothing. That's a misquote. That's what your grandma will post on Facebook to justify her knowing nothing. What he's saying is, the actual quote is, I'm wiser than all these other jabronis around me because they mistake things in the physical world as knowable things, and I would never make that mistake. I am wisest because I know what is knowable. It's not that he doesn't know anything. He knows what isn't knowable. And just that fact makes him wiser than all of the other politicians and generals and everything else in the society. Because he knows what knowledge is. It's this. That's the real quote. So if you know knowledge is ousia, you can recognize understanding is the mastery of ousia. Why grandma gotta catch strays? Because I see it on Facebook. It's like, maybe not grandma, like maybe all those sorts of people that say, well, I don't need to be educated. Socrates says he was wise because he knew nothing. That means there's nothing to learn. And that makes me as smart as Socrates because I'm also dumb. It's a misquote. One I see a lot, but it's not what he said. That's ousia. And he's saying, hey, by the way, why would you even get into this game? Why would you learn about a realm you haven't even experienced yet? Or you don't remember you experienced before you're born? Now, some people get into this game because they get lucky, or they have a mushroom trip, or a near-death experience, or some heightened display of trauma, or emotion, or childbirth, or dance sometimes. There are ways that they have this experience, and then they walk away going, holy crap, that was far more real. Or actually, let's use the triad that we just made. This is how you can use these triads. Hey, that experience I had existed more than anything I've ever experienced. It was more real. It was the most powerful experience I've ever had. It seemed like knowing that self as that, or knowing reality that as that, was the most profound activity I could ever engage in. So see, this is how we can use metaphysics. It's how people make sense of that experience. So once you've had that experience, because it was the most real, because it was the most powerful, because it was the greatest activity, now you want to understand it. Now you're into philosophy. Then hopefully you come across Pierre Grimes or a Balboa translation of Plato, and you realize, oh, that's what it is. Or this book that we're reading right here. Or this stream. But not everyone is like that. Even if you take a lot of mushrooms, it's not guaranteed. But here is another way. Music. Music. Through harmony and rhythm, you can be awakened to, hang on a second, what the hell is going on here? Is what Socrates is saying. It's through me. Where's Socrates? Come on. Get on the screen. It's through music, harmony and rhythm that mankind first encounters the power of ousia through music and the experience of beauty. The attraction to beauty and harmony stirs the soul and awakens a love for the beautiful. And this power of ousia turns them about, and pervades through their lives. The elevation of the soul is accompanied by a desire to understand and know the source of beauty and truth. And this leads the soul to turn around and inquire philosophically. And then, my friend, and then my dopey-headed friend, they become attracted to the dialectic. Since this is what brings the soul to the good itself. These three ways of being are called the anagogic triad. Wow. So we have a triad for what it means to be a god, but now we have another triad that we call the anagogic triad. Beauty and harmony that humans first experience through music, and then they turn around, they want to know about it, they want to inquire about the source of it, and that can awake them up to the dialectic. And holy crap, I just had an insight. I play music. So, and when I play music, I get this question a lot, and it's always irked me. People go, wow, that's amazing. How long have you been playing guitar? I hate that question. Because then I got to think about the physical world and time and go into my image of myself, and I don't like any of that. That's not me. That's not real. I hate that answer. And I've been like playing with different ways of answering that question. Now, normally I talk about the need to seek excellence in something that you do in order to provide the conditions for philosophical midwifery. As you seek excellence or mastery of an art, then all of your images, beliefs, and opinions about yourself that are false, that cause you to be stuck, come to the surface, and that gives you the material that you can use in the dialectic and philosophical midwifery to do what we're here for and free ourselves. So that's what I've been, kind of how I've been answering lately. But now I think I know what's going on. They are drawn in because of the beauty and the harmony, and it's rare. My beliefs from my childhood and my image of myself can make it hard to see that it's rare because I'm just stupid or whatever. You have to believe about yourself to reject your own value of self, mind, and understanding. 3, 2, 1. But objectively, that's what they're experiencing. And when they ask me, how long have I been playing? What they're really asking me is, what's the source? I just saw that just then. That's pretty cool. I'll take that as a birthday gift. Cheers, Pierre. Maybe now I'll be less irritated when they ask me that question. So now I know what they're saying. Oh, that's amazing. That's rare. That's exceptional. It's a non-physical expression, or rather, music kind of bridges the gap. Beauty is from here, but it's kind of physical, but it's kind of not. Yes, you can play music physically when you play that song, but the song doesn't live in a physical world. So you can see why it's the first taste that human beings can have, because it transcends this divide between becoming and being. And when people say, how long have you been playing? They merely mean, well, where did it come from? Now, because they're not used to this kind of reflection that we're engaged in here, because we are the best channel on the internet, they just use physical things. They must have a physical cause, and that physical cause must be in your past. And what we're told is, hey, you know how you get good at something? Practice. Do it physically lots. So they're asking, oh, you must have been doing this for a long time. How long do I have to play music before I can do it too? Which is fascinating, because last weekend, a couple of fellows stopped and talked to me, and they said, we want to play, I think they were foreign as well. They had an accent. Said, we want to play guitar like you. I said, oh, do you play guitar? Not yet, but we want to play it like you. That's a strange thing to say. considering he didn't play guitar, it's the same thing. So what they're saying is, hey, that's an interesting thing. I recognize that. I want to participate in that. But what Socrates is saying, hey, you know what? You know what the real answer to that question is? The dialectic. Because it's through the dialectic. Sure, beauty and harmony can be fun and can awaken you to the existence of a transcendent realm of beauty that you can experience as knowing. It can awaken you to a transcendent order that you can participate with understanding. But the use of knowledge and understanding together to reach the good is the dialectic. Music is here to awaken us to the dialectic. So we can take this triad and play with it. Harmony, what's that? An order of notes that you can list within a set of notes called the key. And the notes have a hierarchical order, the octave at the top, of course. The perfect fifth is next. The arrangement of that order is harmony. That's understanding. We just said that, understanding. Applied to metaphysics, it's understanding the metaphysical terms that are the conditions and principles for reality, also represented as the gods, and putting them in the order. And that's what we are going to be doing as we read, because that will give us the 12 Olympian gods, or the worldly gods. Set of terms arranged hierarchically and the relationships between them, that's understanding. That's also harmony in music. You can use that to, as we said, by the way, each of those gods or causes and principles can be attached to an experience. That's knowledge. When you have that experience, it's beautiful. When you experience something beautiful, hey, is there an order? A beautiful face, does she have 2 eyes? And is her mouth symmetrical? And an ear over here? Is there a balance to her features? A harmony, an order, a balance, a proportion, a flow? But in beauty, you don't see the parts, you experience it all at once. Oh, congratulations. Are these your in the medical field? Is that what you're interested in? And why are you golden eye and not sus today? I'm full of wonder. I just had an insight into why people ask me a certain question when I play music. So, while we understand the parts, we experience it all at once. That's beauty. You don't experience parts in beauty, it's an all at oneness. Or, harmony and beauty is too. I'm going for CNA, 8 to 12 weeks, then RN for 12 months, fast paced, but I need a car, my own phone and laptop. Oh, RN. Oh, registered nurse. Oh, that's fantastic. So glad that it's in the field that you want to be functioning in. It's what you're interested in. That's fantastic. Awesome. Congratulations. I hope it goes well. Or if it doesn't, I have things to think about and talk about to discover what you're here to discover. False belief that about yourself or image of the self that's inconsistent with you functioning as the kind of nurse you want to be. So as you develop your learning and understanding of that, you can also be doing dream analysis and midwifery to uncover this, because you can't have both. That's the significance of what we do here. So you're in the right place. So harmony is to beauty, is to the dialectic, as analogy, understanding, and knowledge can be used together to reach the good self, which is actually what we just reviewed earlier. You can use understanding to reach being, and as we just said to our friend in chat, understanding at the same time can remove the false beliefs that are inconsistent with that excellence. But after you have understanding and knowledge, that's not the end. You can also apply your understanding to that to reach the good, to find the condition and cause of that. So in other words, understanding plus knowledge to reach the good. And by the way, that activity that utilizes those two together is the dialectic. And because we have these terms of understanding and knowledge, we've already looked at the fact that, hey, understanding is something that you can do in time. Knowledge is all at once. Or beauty is the whole. Harmony is the application of the parts. Which gives us a question, because we already know whole and parts are a self pair. These terms are the parts of logos or understanding, because we use them to understand belief. Believers are in conflict between whole and parts. They're in conflict between time and eternity. That's the fourth stage, belief. The fifth stage, the massive difference, Democrats, the modern Democrats, only talk about parts. They have no paradigm of the whole. They have no goal. Chuck Schumer has never inspired anything or done anything good with his time. They never have a transcendent model that they demand. If they did, they wouldn't fucking allow fascists as a political party. You can't have a paradigm that any politician has that has to exist outside of time that allows for people who don't care for the people. They're saying, oh, the Democrats are our enemy. No, they're 60% of the population. You can't have the people you're supposed to care about as your enemy. Oh, we have belief. No. You need understanding and knowledge. In other words, this is also the paradigm for governance, politicians, and spiritual leaders, because everyone who is a politician, we need to demand they have knowledge of the paradigm, knowledge of knowledge itself, and they have to have understanding itself, and they have to be able to use it. That's the dialectic. Understanding and knowledge to reach the good self, or the dialectic. So that's where we're heading as a species. We either recognize this and demand it as a race. Every single politician have knowledge, understanding, and the dialectic. Not one person is qualified if you don't have that. Otherwise, you won't be functioning in a good way. You need to have knowledge of the good. You won't be actually helping people. Requires understanding. You won't be able to apply it to all people, not just the people who are sycophant, fascist, MAGA people. Everyone, the dialectic. The dialectic is the standard or the skill or the art that we are here to master to reach the good self. And it's these people we must demand take positions in politics and spiritual positions. Or our species, it goes extinct like the many others that have done. That's just that simple. Kind of feeling blue and kind of only wanted to talk to a few people, so I'm my alt. Oh, okay, fair enough. I'm glad I'm one of the few people you chose to talk to. Always lurk and watch until you're. Oh, thank you for that. Yes, I need to have an average of 3 people for like 3 streams or something. So yeah, I'm glad that you are lurking. It's going to help me become affiliate. That's when I start making the big bucks. Oh yeah, then you people gonna say goodbye to you people, gonna live on my yacht. Oh yeah. Hang out with Diddy. Oh yeah, you guys can say goodbye as soon as I'm a Twitch affiliate. Me and Hassan Piker, we're gonna drive our Bugattis and just live the high life. All that great Twitch ad revenue or whatever happens when you become a affiliate. Say goodbye to you chumps. I'm kidding, of course. That's how you know. So, for me, when people say, oh, how long have you been playing guitar? What they're really saying is, I have a soul that is experiencing beauty and harmony through music. You are awakening Usia within my soul, and I have a desire to understand and know the source of that. I don't know about philosophy, so I'm going to say, how long have you been practicing or been playing? But what they're really doing is, hey, they're opening their soul to knowing the source of beauty and truth. That's the dialectic. So, what's going to be my answer today or tomorrow when somebody asks that question? I don't know. I don't know. I have to see what's going to happen. How long have you been playing guitar? Oh, you're interested in the dialectic. Let me explain. You're like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? That's not what I asked. No, your soul wants to know the dialectic. What? I just want to know how long you've been playing guitar. No. See, it's only through the dialectic you can come to know the good self. That's why, well, therefore, the meaning of life is, if the meaning of life is to know the good self, that's what makes it meaningful. And the way of doing that is through the dialectic. Ipso facto, the meaning of life for every single person is to master the art of the dialectic. Hooray! We know the meaning of life. But if I say that to someone on the street, oh, I don't know how well it's going to go. No, I'll try, and then I'll try again the next day. But yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? If you sell out, you persuade the elites to become philosophers. That's right. So once I'm Twitch affiliate and I dump all you chumps, I'll say, I'm just going to change the system from the inside. I'll become one of the elites to trick them all to be dialecticians. You will know. Because it's the meaning of life. It's an art that we all necessarily have to master to solve our problems, reach our excellence, and go beyond that, or beyond knowledge to the self. Therefore, the anagogic triad. We make use of harmony, beauty, and the dialectic, or understanding, knowledge, in the dialectic, for our soul to move upwardly. That's what it means to be anagogic. Jesus has a response. He says, they are already turned around, are they not? Should we not first discuss what is behind this idea of the triadic order? Triads. Why is it in triads? Why do we understand things in triads, like we've been doing? Yes, says Socrates. He says, yes, that is a good idea, Jesus. Let me ask you to consider, if there is a cause, must there also be a condition for a cause? What we're after, where's my mouse? After causes and conditions for causes. there would be no particular cause for anything to be without its condition for it to be a cause. The conditions for all principles, we're after principles too, and for living things must be, oh, we're interested in living things as well. The conditions for principles and for living things must be prior to all else. However, for living things to be, there must be a power of life for them to be. Be and then power of life. Equally, having the power means, does it not, that their activity can proceed once living things have the power. Ah.
Wow.
Talking about a bunch of slop freaks.
Interesting. So, what we have just done is defined our activity as a human being. Sure, in whatever activity we are doing, be it playing music, becoming a healer or a nurse, in seeking our highest excellence in doing that, we are creating the conditions, a paycheck, I suppose, so that we can also at the same time be developing the activity we are all here to master, the meaning of life, the activity of the dialectic, the highest kind of art. That took a turn. What, the soundboard?
Freaks.
Sorry. Sometimes my soundboard calls you a freak because it's random.
Do a poggers.
But sometimes it tells you to do a poggers. It's a wacky soundboard. Yeah. So, that means that we as existing beings have a existence. We be. We've got a power or life about us, and we've got an activity to do. By the way, that activity raises us to our highest kind of existence. So the question that I have, well, how do we get the power? Is there a way of awakening a different power or a higher power that we can make use of to do this activity of the dialectic? Now, we have been talking about the necessity to also, as we go through this, awaken and remove our false beliefs in midwifery. And we say it's a zombie virus because it is a psychic parasite. It saps our power in various different ways. Distractions, thoughts, undermining yourself, tangents, but also can make you sleepy, can give you headaches, can cause depression, all these sorts of things that our current medical model is, our current model of understanding the mind doesn't have yet, because this is the model, and current psychology borrows the medical model, so that's an interesting thing. So we can awaken greater power by removing this. But is there a different power? So we know the activity, the dialectic. We know we want to awaken a higher being or existence, but what's the power? So, for all living things like us, we need to exist. There needs to be a power, there needs to be an activity that we do once we have the power. And now we know what it is. Hooray. Or at least we have a right opinion about what it is from the text. That's why we read. We gather these right opinions ourselves and order the terms as parts within a hierarchy to make our own understanding. We draw our own funny diagrams. That's the movement from, where is the model? Here. So here is where we start. We can either move in an anagogic direction to the right, or a purifying direction to the left. We can either address and remove our pathologos, image of the self, or we can move anagogically to develop a mastery of the self logos. So if we're going this way, right, hey, to be here, you guys are all curious. You ain't maggers who think you know everything, or fundamentalists who think you've got it all figured out. Otherwise you wouldn't even be here. Philosophical ignorance, knowing you don't know the meaning of life and the nature of the self, God, reality, enlightenment, called being stung. That's the first stage of cognition or being. Then we read the book so we can gather the right opinions. You want to be a mechanic? Get a book on how to fix cars. Want to know the nature of self and reality and the meaning of life? Read this book. So we've got the meaning of life, that's the dialectic. That's our highest activity or art. But hey, we have to make it our own by collecting those right opinions and organizing them. That's the movement from right opinions into understanding, which is the use of the dialectic. In other words, that's the structure, you can organize it. Hey, you want to know what beauty is, or you want to know what the dialectic is? Give a definition of it. Self itself. How does it function itself to others? What's the result of that functioning on other people, others to others? And having been affected by the dialectic, how would those others then relate back to the dialectic? These are the 4 categories of the dialectic. So everything you learn about it in right opinion, you can arrange it. That's understanding. You can also do diagrams, and you can also have dialogues. Dialectic, diagrams, dialogues. The 3 Ds. The 3 dies. Dialectic, diagrams, dialogues. Just no diarrhea. Oh, do I have to say that? I could have thought of a better thing to say at the end. How about dialectic, diagrams, dialogues. I can't think of another dire word. Let's forget about diarrhea. Pretend I didn't say that. So that's, hey, that would be nailing down our right opinion of the meaning of life into your own understanding. And by the way, as you do those things, you are creating the conditions for knowledge. And that's the 4th cognitive function. Within, because there's no belief in this model, and there's no massive difference in this model. So, stages of cognitive development within our anagogic movement. By the way, in the symposium, there are also levels of beauty that you can have a love for that correspond to these levels as well, in a loving relationship with someone else who's also a philosopher. And then, as we said, understanding can even be applied to knowledge to go beyond it, to encounter. While you can experience knowledge, you can add logos or understanding to it to develop true excellence. That's the symposium. So as you encounter knowledge of beauty itself, go on to reach the self. Now what we just heard is, hey, by the way, that's the dialectic. Because we have beauty, harmony, and the dialectic reaches the good. And if knowledge is before the good, then this application after you experience beauty itself of understanding, that's the dialectic. Hooray. I said hooray. Also, what Socrates says is, hey, by the way, providence is up here. Providence is beyond knowledge, but can be reached through understanding. And so there are 5 stages of development, anagogically. The 4, by the way, 4 here, you can use the dialectic. So even our stages of development, which has dialectic as its part, can be represented as the dialectic. You start off stung or other than the self. You gain right opinions from another other, the text. You arrange them yourself, so you take those others and you function self to others. And then you have an experience of knowledge itself, directly turning about pure Rusia, self itself. Which means the fifth stage is also a mystery. Because we only have 4 categories of the dialectic. Is there a mysterious fifth category of the dialectic? Now, we just read that fifth stage is not an object of metaphysics, so maybe there isn't a fifth stage because it's the condition for the dialectic. If the dialectic is the cause that allows us to go through this development from being stung to reading the text to arranging the right opinions and understanding, which causes our experience of knowledge, maybe the condition. And by the way, same thing in the other direction. As you go through this, you are curious about your problems. You never punish yourself. Never punishment. It's never blame or punishment. That's tyranny, fascism. Open about your problems. Collect your false opinions. So as we had right opinions from the text, as we read, you're going to surface your false opinions, negative self-talk and all that. We apply the same dialectic, the skill. You don't end up with knowledge, you end up with a freedom from a false knowledge. So all of those MAGA people and racist people and genocidal people who, as they do their terrible things, all the ICE people, as they hurt human beings, they feel like big stuff, tough, strong guys. Look how big and tough I am, ripping this parent away from this child or murdering this Palestinian child. That's false knowledge. Sadism. Sadism is false knowing. You free yourself from that. So this direction is a purification, while the other direction, the anagogic direction, is a perfection. Perfection and purification. Do them both. And equally so, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the mysterious fifth of knowing the self. Only in this direction, it's a purification of your false image of the self, which is necessary because in the anagogic direction, that last stage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is an encounter of the state of the self or the good or the one self. And we said just then, it's beyond images. So as we said to our friend, you can't be the ideal nurse, excellence of nurse, and have any false belief about yourself as not being good enough. You can't have both. So as you reach your excellence in your learning, you also will be getting messages from your dreams about your false image that you have to purify, let go of. That's also a principle for everything. Because the self itself is the ultimate excellence, which has the ultimate art of the dialectic as its functioning activity, which is imageless. No image of the self. So that's pretty neat that we can understand that. And it's just 4 or 5 parts. It's not like rocket science, but it's fun. So, for anything to be, including us, peeps, we need to exist. There has to be a power of life, and there has to be an activity that we can use the power for. And Jesus says, he says, wow. Wait, wow.
Wow.
He says, wow. I must say I like those distinctions, says JC. And Socrates comes in. Yes, but then we need another. Consider, must not each of these have a mode of existence? These 3 things have to themselves have their own mode of existence. Sure thing. says Jesus. And that is as true as that and that is as true as that the light proceeds from the existing sun. It must have a power to extend its rays throughout the heavens. Then we can expect each of these three fundamental ideas must have three modes of expressing themselves. Existence must have a mode of being, a power, and an activity. And as the activity must have its own mode of existing, power, and activity. However, to complete these, we need something that preserves these and maintains their existence. And that also must have its own existence, power, and activity. Wow, we are getting super smart for this. Everything has these three things, from gods to us weans, for our Scottish listeners, weans. But you can also say, hang on a second, if these three things are for gods and people and everything that exists, these principles themselves have to have their own. Existence has to have its own existence, power, and activity. Power has to have its own existence, power, and activity. And activity must have its own existence, power, and activity. So you could actually do this, and if you're fancy, and do this. Look at that. The existence, power, and activity for existence. Give a different color. Actually, oops. We have this. Let's go this color. There'd be an existence, a power, an activity for existence. There needs to be an existence, power, and activity for power, and an existence, power, and activity for activity. Look at that. What a mess. What a mess this diagram is. So we can actually just do that one. Go back to this one. Do this thing here. Like that. Each of those points on the triangle has its own mini triangle. But there has to be something. There also has to be a fourth thing, which is great because 4 is our dialectic. There also has to be, do it like this maybe. See if this works. existence, a power, an activity for what protects or preserves. What's the word in the text? Preserves. 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 That keeps it all together, keeps it from falling apart. Okay. Power and activity. We have 3 triads, says Socrates. Necessary for things to exist. Existence as a being, mode, and activity. Power as a existing power and activity. Give that a different color. Activity. Make this purple. Make it pink. Must have its own existence, power, and activity. And preserving. Make that orange. Has its own existence, power, and activity. Look at that. Neat. Jesus says, now are you going to say that for each of these there must be a God? Astonishing. Socrates says, tell me, what is it that you say is astonishing? Oi! Remember how I had that question? People who listen to me play music and have this question, it's because there is something astonishing or curious that they have recognized. And my question is, what do I say? What's the best response to this? Socrates said, hey, what do you find astonishing about it? You've brought to me your own power, existence, an activity of astonishment. I don't have to do anything. You put words on it. What do you find most interesting about this, Jesus? Says Socrates. I'm going to carry that with me as I play music too. Maybe I can use this. I can steal his, I don't know. Steal his hack? What would you call it? Steal his strategy? Stratagem? What is it you find astonishing, Jesus? It is beautiful. Hey, here we go. So he does. My hypothesis is panning out. Hooray for me. I find it beautiful, says Socrates, says Jesus, in its simplicity. And it is ordered in its structure. Beauty and harmony, just like playing music. Beautiful in its simplicity and ordered in its structure. Interesting. Beauty and harmony. And is that what we call rational? Music is rational. Yes, indeed. You have caught my meaning completely. So not only can I respond to these questions, hey, how long are you playing guitar or whatever, variations of that kind of response. What do you find interesting about it? Not only can I ask that question, I might even be able to anticipate their response might be this archetype from this banger of a book. This book is such a banger. Perhaps the responses will be some variation of, It's beautiful in its simplicity and is ordered in its structure. That's interesting. Okay. I was watching a streamer today, and I had a similar response of astonishment to something they said. And I used these same words. Now that's interesting. I said that was amazing. It was astonishing, or what did I say? I don't know, some version of astonishing. Because of how, how simple. Exactly. It was beautiful in how simple something was said, but also amazing because of how well ordered and structured. Somebody said three things. Like Chatter had a question and they gave a response. Here are the responses. Here are three things that could explain it. It was amazing because each of those three things was a perfectly ordered structure of a sentence, like a sentence each. The words used were so well ordered that it perfectly explained them all three in a way that the thousands of people watching could all understand, no matter where you are and what level of learning you're at. But yeah, and so that was the ordered part of it that was astonishing, but that wasn't enough. It was the fact that there were only a sentence each for each three of those hypotheses. The fact that there were only a sentence each was beautiful. That's the simplicity. There were no extra words. Each sentence was perfectly ordered and structured, but also perfectly simple, and it was that was so beautiful, and it was the combination of the two. The perfectly ordered rational structure of each of the sentences or hypotheses, as well as how beautifully put together they were in three simple sentences. And it was just amazing. And I was astonished. I had to stop what I was doing and make that comment in the chat. Hey, by the way, that was what happened. And this is how I feel. I feel astonished. Or some version of that makes me cool. Maybe I said it was poggers.
Freaks. You've been a bad little feminist walking a bad little girl. The more holes, I'm cute. Like, do a poggers.
There we go. I got there. I found the poggers one. I can't use my soundboard in that way. It doesn't work. I can't go through all other options before I get to the one that I wanted. Interesting. And Jesus had the archetypal response because actually, so the people responding to my playing music is, I guess, level 3. That Chatter answering a question about the physical world, understanding the principles and causes for something significant happening in our physical world will be level 2. In that it's dialogue and not music. And level 3 would be what we're reading here, the higher one, Socrates, because he's using language, but he's using language not to talk about the physical world, but specifically to talk about this, the metaphysical world. Because this are 4 triangles. Oh, by the way, 4 times 3 is 12. Maybe these are the 12 Olympian gods. So 4 triangles to explain the necessary conditions and principles for the realm of being. So Chatter was using, streamer was using language about the world of becoming, and I was not using language but using music. So 3, 2, 1. Each of which had a response. as the person watching me play music responded to me, recognizing the beautiful simplicity and the ordered structure of my music. So too, I was to the streamer finding the beauty and the simplicity and the amazingly well-ordered structure. As Socrates, as Jesus is to Socrates. Analogies. We have fun here. Don't we have fun? We have fun here. The archetype. How fascinating. Amazing. Oh, and equally so, which is a triad, by the way. So here's another triad. Me as to streamer, as to Socrates. And then another level. Here's our fourth level to get that fourth triad that we have here. The thing that preserves all of them together. So we've got me doing this activity of music, the streamer doing that higher level, and Socrates doing the archetype, pure existence of it. But what allows me to preserve the understanding of all three is this book, which has its own beautiful structure, has its own simplicity of beautiful simplicity and rationally ordered structure, that it also exists on this highest level. So now my astonishment of this book giving me what I need to understand music, streamer, and Socrates is itself a work of wonder that functions to protect this, because if it wasn't for this book, I wouldn't have the right opinions. If I wasn't curious, I wouldn't have started to read it, but if it wasn't for this book, I wouldn't have the right opinions that I could nail down in that structure to have a lasting kind of a knowledge. So there's our four triads. What does Jesus have to say about this? Jesus says, Socrates says, what do you find astonishing? Jesus says it's the beautiful simplicity, it's the order and the structure. And by the way, what I'm recognizing is rationality. And Socrates says, yes, indeed, you have caught my meaning completely. I will set out the way they function, and your task will be to give the particular god a name. I should first of all say that there are many gods that function in many different orders, and the one we have agreed to discuss is the mundane or worldly, as I prefer to call them, the gods of nature. This is the realm of all living and intelligent beings. Well then, what are the other orders? I guess... Yeah, what is... Didn't he just say... Excuse me for a second. Didn't he just say... that metaphysics and theology, the personification of that as gods, is the realm of being, but not the self? Then he says, hang on a second, these mundane or the gods of nature apply to all living beings, so that's us here, and intelligent beings, that's them there, and there's nothing beyond that. So what's left? I have a puzzle, which is what we're after when we read. The gods function in a hierarchical way to bring full realization of the truth, capital T, to mankind. Now that's a sentence. The gods function in a hierarchical way to bring full realization of the truth to mankind. Good. We've got a standard of knowing the truth that we can demand of all spiritual and political leaders. Good. The first of the... And of course, that's secondary. I keep talking about that for our species, but doesn't matter. The important thing is that we get to do it while we're here. And wherever we find ourselves, in body or out, whatever dimension, whatever time. In other words, it's not a group thing. You don't have to have the rest of the group in on it as you do believers. The gods function in a hierarchical way to bring a full realization of the truth to mankind. What's that? Okay, I'm going to move my pedal board. Oh, it was plugged in. Just turn down my guitar. Shouldn't hear it now. There we go, it's gone. I made it on a clipboard. It's my mini pedal board. Doesn't have all of my pedals on it. The basic one. I'm gonna take it out to practice with today. The first of the gods is the source of all that exists, and he is guided by divine wisdom. Okay, first, source of all that exists is guided by divine wisdom. It is through this that he takes care of all things, both living and non-living. Second, there is a God who... Actually... Alright, so we're about 2 hours in. Okay, we've got a baseline of understanding what we're going to be doing, developing an understanding of the 12 Olympian gods that apply to all intelligent and living beings, and it might match these 12 here, is a question, because there are 12 here. Existence, power, and activity, so 3 times existence, power, activity, and preservation. So that's 4 times 3, giving us 12. He's just started a list, so we're on number 1. So we're going to put them in a hierarchy. We recognize that as a movement from right opinion or into understanding, and we recognize that as what we are here to do to create the conditions for knowledge. But also we can, we can also apply this maybe to that experience of knowledge to reach the self, which is what we're here for. And we've got another word for knowledge. It's truth with a capital T. That's all this here. So, we are going to be developing an understanding of the nature of reality. I'm going to add the specific content to this general model. We have the general 3 ontological dimensions. We have a bunch of epistemology, image thinking, belief, understanding, knowledge, and something. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a mysterious 5th that applies to the self. We recognize that understanding this is metaphysics, putting a god on it is theology. That's the game. We're going to be developing our understanding, which we just saw as we do this, as we play this game of solving this puzzle. We are not only developing our understanding and practicing analogy, which is how we think, we're also creating the conditions for our own insight experiences into the realm of being and maybe even into the self as well. So the reading of this is itself the highest activity. Because we're also going to be doing the dialectic, because whenever we structure things, we're going to ask, hang on a second, does it fit with the dialectic? 1, 2, dialectic, self to self, definition, self to others, demonstration, others to others, division, others to self, conclusion. Just as we applied it to those stages of development, hey, the mass, everything is relative, there is no whole, Chuck Schumers of the world, they are other from self. They have no connection to self, a mass of differences. Believers are other from others. They're always different from understanders. They're different from the people within their own group even, and they have opposition to even their own spirit. Understanders use the self to function providentially to others, and of course, knowledge is self knowing itself directly. So in other words, everything that we learn, including what we're going to be doing here with the gods, we're going to ask the question, hey, for preservation, existence, power, and activity, can we fit that into the dialectic? So if the dialectic is the structure of understanding and the highest activity, because it's the highest art that we are all here to master, and therefore the meaning of life, that's what we're going to be doing next time. Understanding the nature of reality and metaphysics and being, as well as doing the activity that we are most here to do. Hooray! Did I mention that this book is a goddamn banger? It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, and as this is the archetype for development, for understanding, for analogy, for growth, then everything else that you do in your world, be it streaming or playing music, will be a copy of this model. So you can carry this as the ideal archetype or model to make all of your other creations more beautifully simple and harmoniously well structured and ordered. And by the way, maybe even put the two together with the dialectic to benefit all those who participate. As I play music today, I'm going to be trying my best to do that. And whatever you do in your day, I encourage you to do the same. Now, you're not in this game alone. You're not supposed to get it right first time. That's why we have a Discord. You can join the Discord community to share your experiences, share your successes, and your puzzles along the way, both of which are objects of reflection, both of which are understandable through the dialectic, that great art that you're mastering. So whether you're overcoming your problems or sharing your excellences and successes, you are still doing that same single art we're here to do. It's the dialectic, baby, all the way down and all the way up. Purification and perfection. So, if you think that's a fun thing to do, feel free to join the Discord. The link below. You can follow along on YouTube and on Twitch. There's a link to the text below that you can download as a PDF. And of course, if you want to support the channel or buy me a coffee for my birthday, there's a link to that below as well. Thank you so much for joining me, and good luck, or rather, good providence, as you follow the logos. I'll see you in the next one.